Alright, guys, it is here, the new river transition. So I've been working on this for the past day or two, and I talked about it on my Discord, but basically, everything about this original sequence that I had done was good, except for the one part where it cut from up river to down river over here. And that was because it just looked weird. I'll show the example of what it used to be. Just ignore the audio, but it just felt. Well, let me do it again. It just feels weird when you watch the full scene. I don't know. It might look normal to you, but regardless, somebody found this guy had made a version where this was the last shot before it cuts, and when you watch the full thing through, it does work a lot better. So shout out to him. But yeah, so what I've done is I've placed this shot now at the end, and so it transitions into here. Also, why does this change every time? I do not need audio while scrubbing. Okay. Um, so yeah, this is now the last shot before it goes down here, which is good because, it starts off um, with some bigger shots like here, close, a little bit bigger, like this one, and then we go really close in depth to seeing them crash around, and then it cuts back here, and then we go downriver. So it just visually works a lot better, but a lot of work went into this. So to start off with, what did I do to start? Normally the movie is playing like this, and then it would go to this scene or this shot, and this was the audio that played for it. And it's basically music, a little bit of ambience, very quiet, just like the water and the nature. And then you hear a couple of dwarves yelling for help and whatnot. And so I actually could work with that. There was no reason really to just um, jump the gun and just completely remove this audio and put only music because it was fine to put new footage over. So, for example, like right here, this was just an accident, but there's this shot of Ori like reaching for help. But if you listen, it's very quiet because of what I've done, but you can hear a dwarf yelling Ori in the outer channels, and that just was like something cool. So, excuse me, there would be no reason to mess with this audio that much. All I did was just decrease the center channel, so that's why it's harder to hear the dwarves yelling because the center channel is the main dialogue one. But because they're yelling off screen, and this is whatever Dory is yelling over to Ori, um, I don't want to have it blasting in the center channel because normally that's only when somebody is talking on screen. So I've decreased that. So now we just have sort of dwarves yelling, and it's all hectic. And then on top of that, I can't just have this audio because there's not really that much water stuff going on, and obviously they're crashing around. So what I've done is I've taken obviously the audio that matches with the video and just layered that up. So I've done some adjustments to the volume that you can see here. And yeah, so just every clip plays with their own little audio. So I'll just play it with, this is no music and just the audio. And so I guess this one too. So there we go. That is just the pure sound effect audio without any soundtrack music. But there was another cool thing too that was lucky. Right at the end of this shot of Thorin looking away, it cut to Legolas normally, and so it had a huge decrease in volume because Legolas is standing off to the side. So if we listen, it was perfect because like this is a master, not master, like a professionally done transition by the people in the studio that were able to like have the echo and fade really well. Just something that would take a while for me to do. So it's just like goes like that, and that's just really nice to have because like it's different between doing like a professional fade like that and then just putting a fade tool on it. But anyways, regardless, this shot is also good to end on right before we cut to this shot because it's sort of like the last one of the dwarves. We see Thorin just yelling or whatever. He's like, oh, screw you guys, I'm out of here. Let's go. And end here, and then we're downriver. So that's most of it. But now, just to finish off, the music also needed to be touched up because right about here, let's see what happened normally. Yeah, so I mean, this audio just became too far lost, and there's like Legolas talking and orcs and whatnot. So I just had to fade this out here. But to repair that, I have just the soundtrack taken from the official soundtrack, and then it just transitions like this. Now the problem is that the sound effects drop off, obviously. So to compensate for that, we still have this audio up here playing with that, and so that's fine because it'll all come out together. But then this part right here is just because I decreased the center channel volume here in order to make the volume of the voices quieter. That means that also the music is quieter in the center channel, but I don't necessarily want that, so I just have this little fade in and out of just center channel music, which just goes like that so that it doesn't get like weirdly quiet here. But yeah, now moving on to the last part of the scene, that is just going to be the actual transition. So first I ran out of audio here. We can see this fades because this was getting into Legolas trying to get shot by an orc, and then Tauriel comes in, so that has to fade, but I don't want it to just be silent. And it's always good to stick with the original movie audio because it's all perfectly matching and, you know, done by the same person. For example, like if I wanted to put just audio of wave sound effects and water from YouTube, it would sound different than the wave audio right here. So I've done that, and I just have these two clips of, well, I'll just play it all together. So there we go. Now you'll notice at the end there's a really loud splash. Now that can be attributed to, let's see, like the dwarves crashing down right here, and then also maybe something off screen. But regardless, that's not even the point of the splash. It's because the music is ending right here, which we can listen to. And if I had the music continue, it just keeps going. So it needs to end there, but I have a perfect cover to make the fade out even more natural. It's fine to fade it out like this, but I could make it even better by just sort of making a crash wave sound effect as the music stops, which is really great. Just a little trick that you can do. And I'll also note that I did transition the music quicker, so you can see these are the two pieces. Normally it just plays out super long, but I didn't have enough footage, so I need to make it quicker. This is what the music sounds like without any other sound effects, but it might sound a little bit imperfect. Well, I think it's perfect, to be honest, for me at least. But once you put all the ambience background sounds, the water crashing around, you just can't even notice, but this is it. So, I mean, the music changes, obviously, but, like, music can change in compositions, like, to instruments. It doesn't have to be, like, elf music just fading in and out constantly. Like, you could just, boom, hit that and change, which is also good because I matched it up pretty closely with the shot changing. So if we listen here, it's not perfectly lined up, but that's just due to how things are edited that I want to work with. If I don't want to slide this any further because I want the audience to be able to see Thorin for a solid chunk, just sort of mocking the elves. And if I line this up perfectly like that, then it'll just cut off Thorin too quickly. So that's why. But regardless, it's pretty much matched up when the music changes and it switches the shot, which is always a good trick to do. Now, lastly, we have, well, I guess I keep saying lastly. No, there's still some more things left. I now want to repair the audio just to put a little cherry on top, because I have so many things fading in and out just to be safe. So right here we have the ambience channels. This one right here, let's listen. It's just generic waves and water. Let's wait. Okay, I just don't want that to fade for too long early. Okay. Then below it we have, what is this? This is some nature ambience for when we get to this shot. too, because like there's definitely animals in here. Wait, is it? Oh no, it's also this one. Sorry. So these two together. So I don't know if you can hear that. It's very quiet, but there's like a couple birds and other animals or whatever. But then when we cut here, you can hear a pretty stark transition. This that we just went from one setting to another, and those transitions are always supposed to be sudden. You're not really supposed to fade out ambience a ton unless it's for an artistic thing, because like say you take a camera in one room and then cut to waterfall. You're not supposed to have it like fade a ton. You can just have it go from quiet to just crashing waterfall as soon as you cut. But an example of an artistic way to do fades and not do that is now when we want to have this suddenly end and we're in a peaceful area and it's just was so hectic, I can do a longer fade exponentially right here. So the waves crashing in water is going to do a longer fade because it gives it a nice effect of just like we're turning the volume knob down and we're back to normal, rather than it just cutting off. So we'll listen to that. Again, I don't know if these are loud enough on the preview. For me, it's super loud, but I don't know if the recording picks it up that loud. But anyways, yeah, that has a nice long fade. But over here, we're now getting into the next scene. So for this audio, we have just the river, and then obviously there's the background, which includes, I didn't talk about this, but it includes wind and a little bit of waterfall sound. I know that there's no waterfall in this, but a waterfall sounds the same as a river in, or I mean more or less, if you have the volumes right, and then some like birds and stuff. So all together, it just makes a new sound, digital or surround sound environment, which is great. All just using sound effects I found online and other stuff. But yeah, now for the second part of the scene, it's just the same as my original cut. Nothing to really talk about here. But yeah, so that is the new river transition that I'm super happy with. The only thing that I might keep working on is just this moment from here to here. There's a lot of factors to consider, like how fast the waves fade out, how fast the music fades out. If the music stops like here where my mouse is, and then it just plays no music, and then cut, or if it just goes music and then music stops and then it cuts. So there's things like that to consider. And then the other thing I guess was just this part right here has so much sound going on that you want the mixing to be right. You don't want it to be too loud and you don't want to be too quiet. So I'll only be able to really test these two things once I check it out on the big screen, because with the full surround sound speaker setup. Now, before I end this video though, I just want to say a few last things. The only other thing I've worked on since last video is this part. So we've been talking about the intermission thing between the parts, and I've decided that I think I'm probably just going to go with this. Excuse me. Instead of doing a continues on part 2, because I mean it always made sense to me that this is part 1 of the edit and this is part 2, so we have a pause and the story continues on part 2. That is a true statement. But for some people, they think that it is confusing, and I see where they're coming from, that like it's not like it's two separate parts, like two separate files. I mean, it is two separate parts, but so that's what I'm going to go with probably. And the other reason I've been convinced so easily is because I don't really care that much about the digital version. I mean, I'm going to watch this on the disc version mainly. That's the cool part, having it on a Blu-ray, and just like the Lord of the Rings box set. So I don't really care that much what the intermission is. Just, I guess, popular consensus likes the intermission, so I'll go with that. Plus, on top of that, this cool gold effect of the text is just cool, so kind of nice to have. Which I actually made this from scratch. I know that the Maple Edit did something similar, so I guess I got inspired from him, but I had this effect for my trailer anyways because I wanted to match the start of the movie. And speaking of the start of the movie, I did adjust the colors a little bit. Why is it... What the hell is this? Why is it not letting me go to the start? Okay, and I'm going to zoom in. There we go. Okay, that was weird. Starting colors right here. So this is the... It's kind of laggy and the text is fading. I gotta find a good spot. Yeah, so right here, this is the new color of the wavy text at the start. It basically matches the one in the middle. I mean, it might not be like 100% identical, obviously, but it's like 99% the same. And for anyone watching casually, you would have to take screenshots and compare them to even begin to notice a difference, which you probably wouldn't even, to be honest. And then we get to the main title here, which is also been adjusted so it's more gold, and that's pretty good. Now the reason I actually had to adjust these in the first place is, let's say we get rid of this, you can see now it goes to like bronze, kind of reddish, which is not that cool. And that's because I did some color adjustment to remove the green tint, which unintentionally affects goldish and yellow colors. Well, no, actually, well, yeah, it does. I'll explain that a little bit more after. So it took away some coloring from this and made it kind of orangish reddish. And then also on top of that, I desaturated the movie because it was way too saturated. And I don't need to have that much desaturation on the logos and stuff because, like, you know, it's just logos. So I reintroduced a little bit of that. Well, actually, no, that's not true. The logos still are desaturated because it looks better, because they're just way too bright, and it matches the the tone of the movie. But what I meant by logos was the opening text here doesn't need to be super desaturated. It can be gold, and that's all cool. So enough of ranting about that. Going on about the color correction. Okay, yeah. So I said that it can affect yellows and stuff unintentionally, and it actually didn't affect anything bad the whole edit. I mean, I've checked everything. Everything looks great. The one thing I had to be careful about though was the treasure hoard, because it started to make the gold coins like look like red, and I don't want that. So you can see if I uncheck that, it's very green and murky. If you have a good monitor, you can probably tell. And then if I do this, now it's a little bit more natural, and then the coins still look gold. So that's just something I was careful for, but for the most part, you can see when there's these long stretches of color correction, that means I didn't have to do anything unique. This is just a blanket green tinting, I guess is the term, because that's what I'm doing. I'm removing the green tint that was present throughout the entire film. But then we get to part 2 and 3, which I want to be more careful with, and so some parts have it differently. Like for Lake Town, I made it a little bit more bluish to represent the cold. I don't want it to be reddish because that kind of implies warmness. I don't want it to be green because that just was something that looked bad. And then also, of course, there's parts that I went way more unique with, like the Goblin Caves. So this is unrelated to the green and the saturation. This is just, I wanted to give it a new look. So like if I uncheck this, you can see the colors are a little bit different if you really pay attention, and the brightness is also different. But I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't really need to talk about the color correction anymore. I could make a separate video, or I could just talk about it in my audio commentary, which is going to be part of the Blu-ray. So yeah, thanks for watching.